When Ferrari rolled out two small clear wings on the halo of the SF26 at the Chinese Grand Prix, the reaction from rival teams was instant. One team threatened a formal protest before qualifying even started. Ferrari pulled the device rather than risk being thrown out on a sprint weekend. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, Ferrari sent their full legal case to the FIA, pointing to a single rule buried deep in the 256 pages of technical rules that nobody else had thought to use. So, how did a team that chose to strip apart from its own car end up holding the stronger hand? The answer sits inside one of the most clever rule readings in recent Formula One history, and it starts with a material choice that made the entire paddock do a double take. Before the SF26 arrived in Shanghai with clear winglets bolted to the halo, Ferrari's aero team had spent months studying a part of the car that most teams treated as dead space. The halo came in as a safety device back in 2018. It sits right in the airflow above the cockpit, breaks up the stream of air over the driver, and throws off a wave of dirty air that spills off the driver's helmet and messes up everything behind it. The engine cover, the rear wing, the diffuser. Every team on the grid accepted that dirty air as a price you pay for putting a titanium bar in front of a 300 km/h wind. Ferrari looked at the same problem and saw a chance. The device itself is surprisingly simple. Two small, carefully shaped winglets made from clear plastic, mounted on either side of the halo's central pillar just above the Meli micro camera unit that sits in front of the driver. The winglets push air upward in a way that serves two jobs at once. First, they clean up the flow of air feeding into the engine airbox above the driver's head, so the power unit gets smoother, higher pressure air. Second, they act as a shield that cuts the drag from rough air, slamming into the driver's helmet at racing speed. Now, the speed gained from the winglets on their own is small. The benefit works out to a few hundredths of a second per lap. By themselves, that is barely enough to move a car one spot on the grid, but the real prize shows up further back on the car. And this is the part Ferrari was counting on. By cleaning up the messy cockpit air that normally spills off the driver's helmet in every direction, the winglets improve the quality of airflow reaching the engine cover, rear wing, and diffuser behind the cockpit. Those parts then work in cleaner air, which means they make more downforce and handle drag better. The gains stack up across the whole rear of the car. And when you think about the fact that Ferrari built the winglets to work together with their exhaust wing, which sits further back and also gets a boost from better air coming from up front, the total effect adds up to more than the winglet's solo gain would suggest. Ferrari's own FIA filing downplayed the whole thing, calling it a minor update that gives back a small aero load benefit. What comes next is the part that still doesn't make sense to most of the paddock. Ferrari did not try to hide these winglets. They did not sneak them onto the car under cover of darkness or wait for a wet weather session where cameras might miss the detail. They bolted them onto Charles Leclerc's car during pit stop practice on Thursday morning in Shanghai, in full view of every camera crew and every rival engineer walking the pit lane with a long lens. Both Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton ran them through first practice, sprint qualifying, and the Saturday sprint race itself. Both cars passed post-sprint checks run by FIA technical boss Joe Bauer, though the official check sheets did not name the winglets. Then Saturday afternoon happened. The FIA raised questions about how Ferrari was reading the rules around the device, and an unnamed rival team let it be known through official channels that a formal protest was coming if Ferrari kept running the winglets into main qualifying and the Grand Prix on Sunday. Inside the Ferrari garage, there had been debate about whether the wings fell in a gray area of the rules, and the team decided it was not worth the risk of any trouble. After the race, Fred Vasseur made the safe call. With points on the line in a sprint weekend format, the risk of being thrown out and losing sprint results after the fact beat whatever small lap time the winglets gave them. They came off the car before qualifying and did not show up again on Sunday. Any other team would have left it there, pulled the part, taken the hit, and moved on to the next item on the upgrade list, maybe coming back to the idea quietly in a wind tunnel months later. Ferrari did the opposite. They pushed harder. Within hours of taking the winglets off in China, Ferrari's rules team opened formal talks with the FIA to get a clear answer on whether the device was legal. They were not going to let this idea die in a hallway chat. They wanted a ruling, a final, locked-in ruling that rival teams could not challenge at future races. This choice seemed small at the time. A pair of clear plastic winglets on a halo pillar worth maybe 0.00 of a second per lap on a good day. After roughly 10 days of review between the Chinese and Japanese Grand Prix, The FIA reached their answer. The device fits inside the allowed size limits set for a windscreen under Article C 13.3.1. Ferrari's reading is correct. The winglets are fully legal. Ferrari has the official go-ahead to bring the winglets back from the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka. And Ferrari is not just running the same version they had in Shanghai. The team has been working on even thinner builds to squeeze more aero benefit out of the 3mm thickness cap. Thinner builds cut the extra drag from the winglet itself, while keeping the upwash that feeds better air to the engine cover, rear wing, and diffuser behind it. The thinner the material, the less the winglet gets in the way of the air it is trying to guide. The new winglets are set to show up at Suzuka, alongside the returning Macarena rear wing. Ferrari's 180 degrees flipping active aero design that was also pulled during the China weekend for more testing. Suzuka is shaping up to be a second launch for Ferrari's full 2026 upgrade package. The exhaust wing, the Macarena, and the Halo winglet all running together in race trim for the first time. Everything was in place. Ferrari just needed to deliver. What this ruling means goes well past Ferrari's garage. The FIA's approval opens up a part of the car that every other team had written off as dead. The Halo pillar was treated as wasted space, a safety bar you built around rather than through. Ferrari has now proven, with a binding FIA ruling on record, that clear material labeled as a windscreen can legally sit in a zone where normal bodywork is banned. Every aero team on the grid is asking the same thing right now. Can we do the same within those size limits? And is it worth pulling engineers off other jobs to try? The answer depends on where you sit in the standings. For a front-running team where 20 hundredths of a second picks your grid slot and shapes your first lap fight, the payoff covers the cost. For a midfield team with bigger gaps to close, a Halo winglet project might be a stretch they cannot afford. Rival teams are already looking at their own takes on the idea. But the FIA has said it will watch how the windscreen reading plays out across the grid. If the designs get bolder or the size limits get stretched harder, a mid-season technical order tightening the windscreen rules stays on the table. Ferrari's head start may last races, not months. And that is exactly the bet Maranello placed. The mindset that Sergio Mariani set down and that Loic chassis team is now running with has turned out 3 major gray area moves in the first 2 races of the 2026 season: the exhaust wing, the Macarena rear wing, and now the Halo winglet. Each one tests a different line in the rules. Each one forces the FIA to make a call, and each one, whether it lasts or gets shut down by a future order, gives Ferrari a racing edge in the window before rivals can catch up. By the time the rest of the grid reacts or the FIA closes one gap, Ferrari's engineers are already hunting for the next one. This is not a team hoping to trip over a loophole. This is a planned push to pick apart the rules faster and harder than anyone else. And the winglet story shows the playbook. Find a zone the rules never expected to be used for aero. Find a part label that allows materials or sizes other teams missed. Build it. Run it. When someone pushes back, lay out the proof that the rules already allow it, and then start on the next one. A small, clear winglet stuck to a titanium safety hoop worth maybe 200 th on a good lap. And it just forced the sport's ruling body to rethink what a windscreen can be in Formula One.